All right, welcome to another episode of the SNG Weekly Wrap-Up. I believe this is episode 8. I don't know. Could be episode 9. Could be episode 10. But this is our first one without Joe. Joe is still on vacation, but we're here with you. As you can see, I'm in North Dakota. Dan, you're over by, is that Tower Bridge? Is that what it is?
It's Westminster Bridge and the
Westminster
Houses of Parliament, Big Ben. The London Eye is just over my shoulder here, so happy days.
Yeah, maybe later in the show you could just turn the camera and show us the London Eye, but
maybe I will.
But for
Yeah,
now, I think this is good.
Yeah.
How have you been? It's been 2 weeks since we've been doing the show. What have you been up to? What sports have you been watching?
I've been watching. I've been good to answer your first question. Formula One has returned in Europe, so the day as we're recording, Sunday the 12th. We've just had the second race of the restart, which was interesting. Really good to see it back. The same circuit. They've raced that both weeks. So that's been good. I've been watching a lot of soccer, a lot of the Premier League, the Championship, a little bit of Italian football in there. But yeah, it's good to have a lot of sport back. The one thing I have missed is Wimbledon being on, which would usually be on at this time of year.
Yep.
The BBC have been showing reruns of classic Wimbledon matches, which has been really good to see. But I have noticed that they've largely edited out Novak Djokovic of most of their coverage, or from most of their coverage,
why.
which I think is telling of the times and the current climate.
It is kind of funny that he's turned into this villain, because I think he was kind of there was a lot of Federer fans or Nadal fans, and then Djokovic obviously is at this point I would say probably better than both of them, and I think he already was kind of becoming this villain, and now people have latched on to the whole coronavirus thing and totally vilified him, which is kind of awesome. I kind of love it. I think every sport needs a villain.
It does. So yeah, looking forward to obviously tennis coming back, and I think next year. Do you think next year could be the greatest ever year of sports?
I mean, it could be, because we're going to have missed everything so much. This summer has potential, at least here in America, to be the best, 3 months of sports leading into football. And then the football is always a great, 4 or 5 months. But the best 3 months of sports we've ever had, I'm just not convinced it's actually going to happen, which we'll get to later when we talk NBA. But if it does, and you have MLB going on in this shortened season leading into the playoffs at the same time as NHL and NBA playoffs, and then next year us all just kind of gobbling up as much content. But as humans, we're all short. Our memories are short, right? So we're probably next year start complaining about the MLB season being too long, or we'll have our complaints for sports, right? So who knows? It should be the best year, but it might not end up that way.
No. Yeah.
So we've got three topics we want to hit on today. We're going to hit on NBA. We're going to hit on some soccer stuff, but let's start with the UFC. UFC 251 was last night. There's 3 title fights. There's actually some great fights on the undercard. So the stuff you don't pay for. There's some great fights. I blanket on the names, but the last 2 fights were great. And the 2 women's fights, one was not good. Paige Van Zandt might be the worst UFC fighter in the biz. I don't even know why she still gets fights. But the second one was great, the Namajunas Andrade rematch. That was a really, really good one. But the 3 title fights, it started with the bantamweights. Piotr, I believe is how they were saying it.
I would say Petr, but Piotr.
I think last night they were saying Piotr. Which was interesting, but Piotr Jan versus Jose Aldo. I know you didn't watch the fights, but I don't know if you saw this. On the end of the fight, Jan was pounding on the back of Aldo's head for probably 3 minutes before the ref stepped in to stop it. And for me, it went on way too long. And I think actually on your first time on the show, we might have talked about this a little bit with the UFC, unless it was the episode before. But from what you've watched of these sports, it can be kind of tough to watch, right? When one guy's just getting pounded on and the long lasting effects that's going to have on that guy's brain.
Yeah. 5 seconds too much is 10 years of,
Yeah.
or 10 years earlier that brain problems are going to set in
Mhm.
potentially for that guy. Yeah, I didn't see it. But yeah, those moments are always tough, and it's the same problem that you get where you say we have short memories and we complain. Next year we'll complain that there's too much sport or that we don't have enough time to watch everything. And with that, it's they either let that happen or the ref steps in a lot earlier and it's called as refs
Yeah.
protecting the fighters too much. Obviously I can't comment too much without having seen the actual clip, but certainly in boxing that happens a lot where fights are called early. But I think it's usually a sign of a good referee if they
Mhm.
can get in there early. The players kind of or the fighters long-term well-being is much
Yeah.
more important than an extra 5 minutes for the crowd to just kind of enjoy that
Exactly. I totally agree.
destruction.
I totally agree
Yeah.
with that, and that was it was the issue last night. It hit on some grounds for me that I don't usually feel with UFC, where I love UFC because I do love the brutalness of the sport, and I love the just the top class that these guys are at their sport, and watching those fights because it's something that I mean in the last fight, Usman kept stomping on Masvidal's foot, and the whole time I'm thinking I could last about 3 foot stomps before I'd be tapping him and trying to get out of there. So I do love watching that side of it. It was just this one. This one was just over the top, and it was hard to watch because Jose Aldo is a legend of the sport. He's a total legend. He's been around for years, dominated the sport in the early 2010s, and now he's kind of on the tail end of his career. And he put up a
Hmm.
great fight, but then he was just overmatched, and it probably there's probably a happy medium, Dan. If you watch the clip, you'll see it. There was a happy medium between calling it too early and calling it too late, and they just missed that mark and they called it way too late, which was unfortunate. But props to Piotr or Petra Jan
Yeah.
for his win, and now taking that what was a vacant bantamweight title. And it looks like Ciuto might jump out of retirement to try to grab that title back, which would be cool. Then you've got your featherweight fight. You had Volkanovski defeating Holloway. Dan, ask me if I think that it was the correct decision on that fight.
So James, that fight was it the correct decision?
No, it was not. That was Volkanovski wins the fight in a split decision. But Max Holloway, I think, very clearly won the first 3 rounds, whereas Volkanovski won the final 2. And that's where this is kind of the question I want to ask you. I know you're not as big of a UFC guy, but something I've been thinking about recently is, does UFC need to go, and boxing even, I know you're a boxing guy as well, but need to go to some kind of more analytical scoring system as opposed to these
Mm,
judges they're 100% just making the calls based on what they see. I mean, they
what
don't
they
even get the
saw in the
stats.
moment.
Yeah, they don't even get
Mm.
the stats of how the fight went. And a lot of times it seems like the guy who wins the last 2 rounds ends up winning the fight as a whole, even though he lost the first 3 rounds. But I don't know if it's the recency thing or what that is. What's your take on that?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, so it is undoubtedly subjective.
Yeah.
And obviously the onus and you're kind of banking on the expertise of the judges. It is kind of in the DNA of combat sports to have judges, and it's not the only sport in which experts subjectively, or at least try and put their objective vision onto what they see. You're thinking of gymnastics, diving, other combat sports like taekwondo, stuff like that. They're generally ruled on someone watching what's happening, and to an extent, most other sports have been that for a long time. So
Mhm.
football, soccer. Baseball, those were all ruled by a referee's eye for a long time. How do you how would you bring a kind of an analytical or a sort of true objective way of measuring that? I don't know. I don't really know. And how much, time would that add on? I think that's probably the question is
Yeah.
that, sure, there's probably technology out there that can register like a punch landing or a punch missed. But can it do it live? Can it do it in real time? Can it produce a result kind of within 2 or 3 minutes of the end of a fight? And that's where it's really difficult. And I think it's also one of the major drawbacks for people getting into combat sports as well. I think is that ultimately most people have a feeling for a fight when they're watching it at home, or like the casual average fan that doesn't, maybe he's never competed,
Hmm.
has a feel for who's winning, but it can completely be thrown off at the end. And I think that's sometimes a little bit disheartening to sit at home and feel like something went one way. Like, for instance, yourself today,
Yeah.
you in your head scored it this way, and then the judge comes along and says, oh, actually no, this is what it is, and that's official now, and
Yeah. And
there's so
and
much at
that's
stake.
and
It's
that's
really
what
difficult.
decides the championship. Yeah, I mean, there is so much
Mm,
at stake. If Holloway wants to get back to that point where he was at one point, he has to probably go through 3 or 4 fights and win 3 or 4 fights just to get back to contending for that championship again. So there is a lot at stake, and ESPN has these um, tracking counters or whatever it is while you're watching the fight, that it's real time updates on punches. It's real time, and they're unofficial until about 30 seconds after the fight. They're made official. And I just think maybe if the judges had some access to that, it might not be the worst thing in the world. I guess the thing that I don't like, and I was reading from a former UFC judge today who disagreed with the decision last night. And the thing I don't like is that he said, sometimes there's rounds that are too close to call. So you wait till the end of the fight to decide on what the round was. And by the end of the fight, Volkanovski had the more dominant of the previous 2 rounds. So he said, he believes the judges would have flipped it there at the end of the fight, where that round had Holloway had the more dominant of the last 2 rounds.
mm-hmm.
He might have won that round. That was truly too close to call. So I guess in one sense it's good. Like, you don't want to draw, right? And Volkanovski, I guess, was maybe the better fighter because he outlasted longer. I guess I just hate the subjectivity of it. But I'm a hypocrite because I hate I hate the VAR and all the replays and
Yeah.
all that stuff too. So I'm a hypocrite, I think, is basically what it comes down to. But for me, I would have scored it differently. It probably helps that I had money on Holloway, so I did want him to win. But
That'll do it.
that clouds my judgment as well a little bit. But I thought he had won the fight. So then finally, you had the welterweight title, Usman defeating Masvidal. It was a boring fight. People were calling him Snoozeman on Twitter, which I liked. But he's kind of the Floyd Mayweather, let's say, of UFC. He's very a technical fighter. He works a lot in the clinch. He's all about kind of getting the points for the punches, landing a lot of his punches, kind of thing. But it was a very slow fight. And for me, I just wonder, are fighters like that bad for the sport? And as someone who watches boxing, do you prefer to watch the slugfest or do you prefer to watch a technical fight?
Personally, the slugfest
Yeah.
for me. And that's a very, very casual fan's point of view. I can really appreciate when someone is. I think if you're, somewhere close to being the best at, going the other way and being very technical, being kind of truly a master of that art, then you can respect it. But is it fun to watch? Probably not. I think
Yeah.
most casual people watch combat sports in the hope that there is some sort of knockout or
Hmm.
some sort of explosive moment. And yeah, if you don't get that, you can kind of sometimes be left kind of wanting more.
Hmm.
But yeah, I mean, as long as someone can kind of display some sort of like technical excellence, I think, there's not too much difference between that being tactical or that being, brute force,
Yeah.
and a sort of rugged approach. But yeah, I would certainly go for more of the bar and brawl kind of approach than
Yeah.
the
I,
Mayweather.
I think most people would, or at least most fans would. I think it sucks for a fighter like Usman because he's so clearly way better than anyone else in his welterweight division. And it kind of
Mm-hmm.
goes for Khabib as well. In I think maybe the light heavy or whatever division he's in, lightweight. But they're so good, but they're such technical fighters that people aren't paying to see those guys fight. And I think it's a bit of a problem for Dana White because he doesn't want to promote. I mean, Habib's kind of different because he's working on an undefeated streak, but he doesn't maybe want to promote a guy like Usman quite as much. And then Usman ends up losing out on some of the bigger money that he might be able to make. So it's kind of a shame. But I do think a fight like that, like if I see Usman headlining a card, I'm not going to buy that card again. It's not. I've kind of been burned twice now. Let's say watching him fight and winning in kind of a slop fest, which is just not as much for me. But we can move on from UFC. Unless did you have any other points that you wanted to hit on?
I was just going to ask you actually if you know when Khabib's next fight is. I just sort of had a quick Google of it, and I think he was due to fight in April.
Mm-hmm.
But they're rearranging something. Is any off the top of your head any knowledge on that?
I have no idea, and it's really sad. His dad just died as well, and his dad was his trainer, very well respected in the UFC community, and so they were looking at potentially later this year, and now it seems like he might take some time off, maybe push it to next year. There is kind of a running clock when you have the championship belt, but he's
Yeah.
given a little bit of a break here because he wasn't even able to leave his country when his fight was slated. The last fight was slated, so he had to kind of wait on that. So yeah, I don't know. It seems like probably 2021, early 2021. We
Yeah.
might see Khabib versus Gaethje, but
Yeah.
it's hard to say. It's definitely hard to say, and it's tough for a guy like Gaethje who stepped in for Khabib, beats Tony Ferguson, and then now has to either risk his chance at fighting for a title and take another fight, or go and have to wait a full year to fight. So a lot of things are hinging on Khabib right now. It's kind of where the heavyweight division, or I think heavyweight was with Cormier versus Miocic. Everyone was kind of waiting on them. They're finally going to fight in August. Now Francis Ngannou and some of the other challengers can step up there. But to make a really simple question, the longest answer ever, I would say probably 2021.
Okay. I look forward to that then.
Yeah, me as well. Hopefully Gaethje beats him because I'm not a big Khabib fan. All right, let's move on to soccer. We've
Cool.
got 3 quick soccer topics to hit on. I'll let you take it over here, and we'll start with Manchester United.
So yeah, first big question is: are Manchester United back, and can we expect to see them kind of winning trophies and titles anytime soon? The answer to that is possibly. They're certainly, they're looking a lot better. Their return after the break has been very impressive. Some critics have said that they haven't faced anyone particularly good yet, but I would argue that beating Sheffield United 3-0 was a big victory, as Sheffield yesterday returned that scoreline to Chelsea beating them 3-0. So Sheffield are no kind of, as we were saying in London, they're no mugs to play against. What has been the reason for Manchester United's turnaround in form? Well, they signed one particular player in January called Bruno Fernandes from Sporting Lisbon in Portugal. And this is the same club that they'd signed Cristiano Ronaldo from all those years ago. I think back in 2004, 2003, 2004, whatever time David Beckham went to Real Madrid. And yeah, so there's a bit of history there. You know, a young superstar coming in to Manchester from Sporting Lisbon and setting the Premier League alight. Bruno Fernandes really does seem to be doing that right now, and he's added, an X factor to that Manchester United team that was loaded with kind of dormant talent, great players that kind of just weren't showing up for some reason. The atmosphere wasn't there, the club philosophy wasn't being followed. And Fernandes has come in with all this confidence and just seems to have brought the best out of the other players that were in the team. One of those is Paul Pogba, who I'm sure is a name that you're familiar with. One of the best midfielders in the world, hands down. Probably top 5 midfielders in the world for technical ability, for physical attributes. His passing range is unreal. His control on the ball is ridiculous. His strength is great. Pogba really seems to have come back to being the player that we saw maybe 5 years ago at Juventus. So now Manchester United have got this axis in the midfield of Bruno Fernandes and Paul Pogba that really is a midfield that is rivaled by almost no other team in world football right now.
And shout out to you real quick for you were on Pogba before anyone else was on Pogba. You were telling me about this guy, so major props to you on that one. But yes, he is
way
definitely
back,
well known.
Way back when, yeah.
Yes.
I mean, he's got a crazy story of his own. I mean, he was a youth player at Manchester United. He wasn't really valued by the former United legend, I guess, Alex Ferguson. Ferguson didn't want to play him too early, thought he had a bit of an attitude problem. He left for free, went to Juventus, became a superstar at Juventus, and then Manchester United ended up paying £80 million to bring him back to the club, birthing the hashtag #PogBack, which was one of the great marketing pieces by Manchester United in the last 10 years. So anyway, Pogba aside, Bruno Fernandes really does look like the real deal. And he's brought out the best in Marcus Rashford, young English talent from Manchester. Also, Mason Greenwood has been the latest young Manchester United star to kind of step up, and he scored a couple of brilliant goals in the last few games. I think next year we'll really see how good Manchester United are, and I think they've got some kind of leverage there to bring in some superstars as well, maybe in the summer, to fill in some of the gaps that they have in their squad. But the Premier League has become a league that demands excellence, it demands consistency, and actually to win the Premier League now, it's not enough to be just a good team with some good players that can all turn up on the day and play well. It's the team that can win basically 35 out of 38 games and get at least 100 points really now is the benchmark to win the Premier League. There's no indication at this point that this current Manchester United team can do that, but they're by far the biggest brand really in the Premier League, and I think a lot of the Premier League's kind of worldwide appeal is thanks to Manchester United in the late 90s and early 2000s. So as a global franchise, I think everyone wants to see them do well, kind of like maybe the Patriots.
Yeah, it's kind of like I was thinking of more like the Cowboys, and every year it's are the Cowboys back, or is University of Texas, are they back every year, and it's like this never ending conversation of that. But it does seem like Manchester United at least has some, I don't know if it's like a model or something to follow, where they have the young players, they have good talent. It seems like they have more of a chance of actually being back than some of these American teams. So it would be, I think, really good for the international audience. I know over here, people are still quote unquote Manchester United fans, but kind of the generation right above me is still Manchester United fans, and they you're going to get a lot more viewers, because right now you don't see a lot of Manchester United games on the American TV stations. But I
Mm-hmm.
think getting them back and getting those games on will be really big for the international market. So hopefully they come back. I know you're kind of a fan, right? They're kind of your second team to Fulham.
Yeah, yeah. Also, if you want to watch Manchester United and see, a true test of how good they are at the moment, they will be taking on Chelsea this time next week. So
Okay.
next Sunday, 1 p.m. Eastern time kickoff. They're taking on Chelsea in the semi-final of the FA Cup.
Okay.
So this is two great teams, two informed teams going head to head. It'll be a good chance to watch not only Bruno Fernandes, Paul Pogba, Mason Greenwood, but also Christian Pulisic will be playing for Chelsea, who has kind of been by a country mile their best player following the restart to the season. So, if you're tuning in stateside, that is a great game to check out. My money would probably be on a Manchester United victory, but I think we could see potentially a high-scoring game there. So I would say 3-2 to Manchester United. It would be my score prediction there. We'll move on to the second point here with soccer, which is the Championship. This is the league below the Premiership. So at the end of every season, the top 3 teams or the top 2 teams in the Championship advance into the Premier League, replacing 2 of the bottom 3 teams in the Premier League. And then third place down to 6th place, enter a playoff system, and the winner of that playoff tournament gets also promotion to the Premier League. My team, Fulham, are currently in a playoff place.
Okay.
And we're kind of shooting for automatic promotion. The team that is first place in the Championship right now is Leeds United. Now, if we're talking about sleeping giants, like perhaps Manchester United at the moment, Leeds are also one of those huge clubs in the UK. Massive following, incredible, history to the club, a lot of success in there. Even, great success way up to the sort of early noughties. They had some great teams. So Leeds are looking like, after a last minute win today against Swansea, Leeds are looking almost kind of guaranteed to get promotion to the Premier League, which is big news.
And how hard is it for a big club like that, once they do get promoted? How hard is it for them to stay up? Do they have more of an advantage than a club like Fulham or smaller ones?
Yes and no. So one of the hardest things about transitioning from the Championship into the Premier League is coming into the league with a set philosophy of football that you can stick to. As well as that, you need a squad that basically transition as one.
Mm-hmm.
It's okay to bring in a couple of players here and there, but basically you want to be able to take that team that wins promotion and have them kind of starting on the first day of the season, maybe with 1 or 2 upgrades in that team, but you want the core of that team to be the same. Leeds' success can be largely attributed to their manager, who is an individual called Marcelo Bielsa, who is an absolute genius when it comes to football. He's one of the more kind of controversial, charismatic managers out there in world football. He was involved in a Spygate a la New England Patriots situation earlier on in the season, where he'd sent out basically spies to spy on Derby County's training session. And then, when quizzed about it, he said, well, we do that for every single club in the league. He plays
awesome.
he plays a very interesting brand of football. It's Bielsa ball. Is the name that it's known by. And I think him coming into the league as a manager with Leeds United will be a big threat. And I think Leeds, with the reputation they have, the stadium they have, the fan base they have, I think they'll certainly be able to mount a considerable challenge to stay in the Premier League next year. And I would expect, maybe 2 or 3 seasons time for them to level out a kind of mid-table to pushing for, you know, 7th, 6th, 5th, that kind of place in the league.
Cool.
Which may be a clip that comes back to haunt me in a couple of years' time when Leeds are back down in League Two. But yeah, the championship, you know, it really is at the business end of the season. The other teams that are going for promotion is West Brom. They're currently in 2nd place. They're based in the Midlands, not too far from Birmingham. You also have Brentford, who's probably Fulham's main rival for promotion at the moment. And they're also based in West London, about 3 miles down the River Thames from Craven Cottage. So
isn't it Thames?
Down the Thames, yeah, Thames Creange. So yeah, Brentford are looking pretty good. They're flying high at the moment, and if they get promoted, or actually regardless of whether they get promoted or not, they will be moving into a new stadium next year. So a new stadium plus a new league would be very, very happy days if you support Brentford. So yeah, keep an eye on the championship. And pray for Fulham. We actually play West Brom this week on Tuesday. It's a 5 p.m. kickoff UK time. So my quick maths make that a 12 o'clock Eastern time kickoff. Yep. You should be able to get that on TV because it's a big game over here. It's on the main cable channel in the UK. So if you get a chance, West Brom versus Fulham is a huge top of the table clash in the championship with a lot of money on the line. I mean, going into the Premier League is worth, you know, 100 million.
And for all my fellow North Dakotans, 11 a.m. Central Time. Dan, you're I was also gonna say, never mind. I was gonna make another stupid joke, but I already made one. So we'll move on to let's move on to the Euros 2021.
Yep. So the Euros obviously were meant to take place this summer. They would have been kind of concluding. I think the final may have even been scheduled in for today, which is, you know, it's sad in itself that we missed out on that tournament, but it is good that we've still got Premier League football. We've still got football in all these other leagues. The question is, you know, who benefits from the Euros being delayed by a year, and you know, maybe who loses out. One team I would suggest potentially lose out slightly is Portugal. Obviously, Cristiano Ronaldo is no spring chicken. He's still an incredible footballer. He's still up there, probably in the top 3 footballers in the world at this point, but he's very much living or playing year to year at the moment. And
not
there will be
just playing.
There will be there will be a point where, you know, Ronaldo is you know, not perhaps the asset that he is now. We see it with all sportsmen. You know, there eventually comes that time where they become either a liability in the team, or they lose just that little edge that makes them outstanding. I guess the counter to that argument is this man that I talked about earlier with the Manchester United segment, Bruno Fernandes, is developing into one of the great world footballers. So, you know, maybe where Ronaldo leaves a bit of a void and a vacuum at the national team level, Fernandes will step in there as the new superstar. So Portugal will be looking to defend their European Championship from 2016. But I want to talk quickly about England. Do England have a chance of winning Euro 2021? They certainly would have had a good chance of winning 2020. The semi-finals and the final were due to be played in London at Wembley Stadium, familiar to NFL fans, of course. And that's a huge, huge advantage when it comes to international football. Wembley is very much a fortress for the England team. We very, very rarely lose games at Wembley. You know, you're talking about probably less than 10 defeats in this new Wembley Stadium, which has been open, crazy. I think, around 15 years or so now, maybe 14 years. So, yeah, the advantage of having a home venue, if we got to that stage of the tournament, would be absolutely huge. There's lots of players to look out for at an England level, particularly a young man called Phil Foden, who plays for Manchester City. He sort of plays a number 8 role, I guess, which is sort of in between the strikers and the midfield. And yeah, he looks like a promising player that should be breaking into the England team next season. We also have young Jadon Sancho that plays in Germany for Dortmund. As mentioned, Mason Greenwood at Manchester United could be breaking into the team. And of course, we have the Premier League winning captain in Jordan Henderson, who will probably be the anchor of the England midfield. The last person I'd probably mention that we will see some sort of progress over the next year with is a guy called Declan Rice, who currently plays for West Ham in East London at the former Olympic Stadium. It's now called the London Stadium. It has zero atmosphere. It's actually the stadium that the Yankees and the Red Sox met last year. Declan Rice looks set to be probably the best defensive midfielder of his generation, and could really be a key puzzle piece for the England national team. So that tournament, as an England fan, I'm sort of optimistic, but of course with England fandom comes immense heartbreak. So I will not count my chickens too early.
Well,
yeah,
I'm a little bit worried about you, not just for England and getting excited about that. You are making a lot of predictions on the show tonight or today, and I do worry about you, and if this is going to come back to haunt you. You mentioned with Leeds some of the other predictions. I mean, if these players all end up sucking or whatever it is, I just hope that no one would ever clip these off and play them back.
Yeah, I mean, the secret there is to always make predictions that you would be happy for them to not come true. So, if Leeds tank, I'm not crying about that. So, yeah, definitely, yeah, never. I'm the worst thing I could probably say is that Fulham will win the Champions League by 2030. I'm not making that prediction, but yeah, some of these other ones I'll be happy if they don't come true.
All right, let's move on to our last topic here. We'll hit it quick. This is the NBA bubble. Dan, I don't know how much you've heard about this NBA's bubble.
Not too much.
So essentially,
I know it's at Disney.
Yeah, it's at Disney. Essentially, the NBA has brainwashed people into thinking that their bubble, quote unquote, is safer than just staying at home with their families. As a lot of these old coaches like Mike D'Antoni and Greg Popovich are still headed to the bubble. But they've had essentially nothing but complaints so far from people, whether it's the Nets, who their players, I think they've had 6 players already back out. When you think about a 15-man team, that's 40% of the team right there. I think that was quick math in my head. It is 40% of the team right there. So that's a lot. that's a lot of players backing out. They're essentially they're signing some guys like off the streets, guys that haven't played all year or in 2 years, whatever. Then you've got the player complaints in one, Troy Daniels for the Rockets, complaining about the food. Now I don't know if you've seen any pictures of this of the food. But it looks fine. I'm just going to pull it up, and I'll screen share it here. But to me, it looks fine. It looks like a fine meal. But I guess for some of these guys and what they're used to, maybe not so great. So here, let me screen share this with you really quick.
That Disney food is expensive.
Yes. Yeah. It should be all turkey legs in my opinion. But here, this is the, did I share the wrong thing? I shared the wrong thing. I'm so bad at the screen sharing. Oh, you got the food? Okay.
Yep.
We're good. Yeah. Okay. So, so this is the food. It looks like a decent meal, maybe just not the gourmet that these guys are accustomed to, right?
Are those onions in the pots?
It's I don't know. You've got lettuce here, watermelon, a roll, more watermelon. Yeah, this is onions.
It
garlic,
looks like red onions, white onions, and garlic.
yeah. They've got some chips.
Which is brave.
is a
Yeah.
weird, yeah. It's a socially distant meal, very socially distant.
I mean, I'm
And
not
then,
gonna lie, that looks disgusting. That looks like the worst airplane food you could ever have.
but you've got to assume it's at least cooked. Yeah, I mean, I guess none of the stuff is cooked. You're
Yeah.
right. It doesn't. It doesn't look amazing. But it does. Bring up the point that this is, or I do want to bring up the point that this was just day one. So maybe we wait till the chefs come in or whatever. But all I'm saying is I could eat this. It doesn't look great, but I could eat it. But on the flip side, this is what the Lakers got. So
Oh damn.
yeah.
That
So
looks great.
I said Rockets, but Troy Daniels with the Nuggets. This is what the Lakers got. This looks a lot better.
Yeah.
I'll
Those
give you that.
tuna bits or whatever. Is that tuna with jalapeno on top?
That's what it looks like. Kind of an
Yeah.
interesting move. This is a
Spicy.
good roll right here. Anything with the spicy sauce and the eel sauce.
Oh, I love
I'll
that.
eat.
That's got to be my favorite.
Yep, it's a great combo, right?
Like I would
It's so
say
good.
Whole Foods in London, or I guess Whole Foods probably in the States as
Mhm.
well, do the best spicy sushi rolls. Love them. I think that would
Yep.
be like my go-to. Like if I was ranking kind of takeaway lunch items from name brand supermarkets, sushi rolls from Whole Foods
Maybe we'll have to do that on the show one of these days.
is making it to the top for sure. For sure.
Um, I like what one of my coworkers makes sushi quite a bit at the school, and will just give me the sauces to take home. So even just on like a chicken and rice meal is just wonderful. So shout out Whole Foods.
Mm.
And then I want to show you Rondo. Rajon Rondo said that his room was like a Motel 6, which I don't fully agree with. I'm not sure he's ever stayed in a Motel 6. But let me show you the room. This is, I guess, what all the players have been given. To me,
Oh
it
my
looks like
days.
it looks like
That looks
to me
so
it looks like a nice
nice.
room, right? It's a nice room.
Yeah.
Yeah, this
Yeah.
is crazy, but that's privilege for you. That's
Yeah.
money right there. But yeah, so this is what the guys are staying in. A lot of guys have complained about it. I will say, I guess if you're 6'8", maybe this
Yeah.
bed is a little small.
Yeah.
But for the most part, I would think this is not as complaint worthy
Yeah.
as some of
And
the
you
other
think
stuff we've seen.
you imagine what like Disney are charging like the average Joe to stay there as well
Yeah,
for
I
like a
know.
fortnight. You're probably talking like $3,000 for a fortnight
Yep.
in that place, like minimum.
Yep.
So like probably per person.
Yes.
So yeah, like you say, that is privilege. I actually had that almost exact same thought yesterday. I was watching YouTube videos of mansion tours in LA and
Mhm.
New York and stuff, and you do have that thought of actually how can these people then go and stay in a hotel, because a hotel is
Yeah.
such a huge step down. Whereas for me, obviously, if I go and stay in a nice hotel, I'm like, I want to live here all the time. Like this is so much
Yes.
nicer than my normal place. But actually, if you're super rich, staying in a
It
hotel is
probably is
actually
like a Motel 6.
a disadvantage, or
Yeah.
you're trading down. Yeah, which is not good.
Yeah, but we'll see. More and more complaints are going to come. I will say I do think it sucks for players that are on bad teams and they do this whole experience, and then they're going to just get their ass kicked by the
Tank.
Lakers or
Yeah.
the Bucks or whatever, and go home anyway. But they have to stay here for a month in preparation and practice. So that definitely sucks. But they are getting paid, so it's kind of a nice trade off. But I would expect, as maybe teams start to not do great in the quote unquote regular season, or have to stay a little longer, I'm going to guess that some of these players might start opting out a little bit sooner than they're supposed to be leaving with their team. So it'll be kind of interesting to see how that works out. One other point I wanted to hit on really quick is that LeBron will wear James on the back of his jersey. Players were given the option to make a social message on the back of their jersey, or to wear kind of a nickname or whatever they wanted. It was big news that LeBron's going with James. I just want to say I'm not ever going to rip a guy for not doing a social. He can do whatever he wants. So I just want to shame all the people that are kind of coming down on LeBron for not using this space to, I don't even know, I guess maybe put Black Lives Matter. I'm not sure exactly what you would put on the back of your jersey.
Yeah.
But I'm no shame here. No shame from the SNG weekly wrap up.
No.
So finally, last thing, will this actually happen, Dan? Will the bubble work, and will we get NBA games this year?
I don't know. I don't know. I mean, the same question could be said of obviously the Edmonton and Toronto bubble plural that's going to be happening in the NHL. You know, it only takes one guy to go off protocol to catch something, and then it's spreading to everyone. You know, that virus is not going to hold itself back just because you know you're in the middle of an NBA game. It can still move from person
it's not
to
an
person
NBA fan, believe it or not,
out on the court, Space Jam style. It can really get into those players like it did with Charles Barkley and Michael Jordan in the film. So yeah, I think we will see some NBA and we will see some NHL, but yeah, it's not a guarantee that we're going to see everything. I have a quick question before you put your thing in on this. Where do the Pelicans and Zion kind of stand on this? Is he fit?
Yeah, I mean, he looks good. I assumed he was going to come in 300 pounds, 350 pounds, but he looks good. He looks ready to play, and the NBA's basically done everything they can to give Zion every possible chance to actually make the playoffs. I don't know if you know much about the format that they're doing, but it'll be ad nauseum to go through it all. But I can tell you off air. But it's they're basically guaranteeing him a shot at making the playoffs. So a lot of people are very high on the Pelicans' chances. But if they do make the playoffs, they'll just lose round one to the Lakers. So it's kind of a token entrance into the playoffs. But yeah, hopefully, I mean, it should be really fun. I hope it works. As Stephen A. Smith said, there's no groupies that are allowed into the bubble. So, you know, guys like James Harden, who every single night are at strip clubs, it might be hard for them in this bubble. So, yeah, I would say there's going to be some player that's going to ruin this for everybody else. I just don't know who that player is.
Minnie Mouse is going to have a good time.
Yes, Minnie Mouse is gross, but is going to have a great time. All right, let's.
I have one more quick question.
Okay, yeah. Go ahead.
Who's had a better rookie season, RJ Barrett or Zion?
Oh, Zion, and Zion's played in 16 games. But RJ Barrett's been good. It's just a classic Knicks thing, you know. They think they're going to have Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving, and Zion Williamson, and they end up with RJ Barrett, who's good. Yeah, no doubt good. But he'll be participating in the summer camps. He's not actually going to be playing this year because the Knicks were so bad. So they won't be in the restart. But yeah, I would say Zion. Zion he looks exactly like what you hoped he would look like coming out of college. Even though my dad, shout out my brother-in-law, both said he'd be a 10.5 rebound bench player because he wasn't fit enough for the NBA. So we'll see how that all takes place. Did you have any other NBA questions?
No, I think I'm good.
Exhausted on the questions. Okay.
Yeah.
So let's wrap it up there. Dan, this was a pleasure getting back to our old TCB days, just you and I doing the
Absolutely.
show. Hopefully we'll have Joe back next week. Do you have any final thoughts before I wrap it up?
No final thoughts. I'm all good.
Okay.
I just show my there we go, my mug there. One of the best TV shows of all time.
That's awesome. Do you watch Better Call Saul?
I do actually. I haven't finished the latest series, which I should get on with
one
that.
episode left on the latest season. Yeah. And it's fantastic. So
I mean, that the guy with the tinfoil, so annoying.
I know. Chuck.
Yeah,
but he's won't be annoying for too long.
There you go. No spoilers. No spoilers on the SNG network.
No spoilers on the SNG network, but won't be annoying for too long. Let's just say also subscribe to the channel. I hate doing this bit, but subscribe to the channel. Dan and I are dropping weekly podcasts. what only COD can judge me. I forgot the name there for a second. I'm so used to calling it OCCJM. Only COD
Yeah,
can judge me.
OCCJM.
It's they're a lot of fun. I'm terrible at the game. Dan's really good at it, but we have really good conversations. So check it out.
Yeah.
It's been a blast doing it. We've got a new ones coming out every Wednesday. This show will come out every Sunday. So just stay subscribed so you get notifications on that. And that is it for the show. We'll be back with you next week, and Joe will hopefully be here as well.